Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Teri at Holding Your Space, and Kim is here today from Intuitive You. Hi, Kim.
Hello.
It's so nice to see you. We haven't done anything together, I think, since you left for England.
Yeah,
And
that's right. Yeah, and I've been catching up ever since, by the way. So I was like,
yeah,
I'm still catching up from my trip. So yeah, but yeah, it's nice to see you and nice to see everybody here. And yeah,
yeah,
I can't wait to chat for a little bit.
yeah. I'm so glad you're here. Um, so we were kind of talking about what's going on and coming in right now. And I don't know if anybody had a chance to watch Kim's. Well, everybody here knows Kim number one, I'm sure, but I'll just say a little bit about you and your channel. Kim has a beautiful channel Intuitive You. She has several different memberships available, and a lot of them involve orbs, which is tremendous. And I think you're like the queen of orbs on YouTube. So
Oh, thank you.
you just, Kim has brought around a different kind of reading that I don't know is anywhere else, but with what you're doing with the
I don't
orbs.
think
Do
it
you?
is. And I'm still feeling my way through it. I have it pretty much down as to how I do it, but it's ever evolving. And because orbs are unpredictable, even for a psychic, they're unpredictable. Every appointment is very, very different, and they decide what's going to come in and what's not and how it's going to be delivered. And it's very, very interesting and a ever evolving education for me.
Well, I love it because that brought out my orbs. I mean, I guess the orbs are always there, right?
Yeah.
But when we acknowledge them, don't you think more come in?
Yeah. And it's partly what I have learned is that the biggest obstacles to getting orbs to come in is that you need to set an intention or set your intention as to why you're doing it and what you would like from them. And you also need to not be afraid. And I think some people think, oh, I'd love to see orbs and stuff, but maybe inside they're kind of like, how would I feel if something was in my, that I knew something was here? I could see it with my eyes. Old like religion, like if you're raised in a religion, stuff like that might come up for you. So sometimes we have these kind of fear blocks that kind of, because they don't want to scare us is the thing. And they don't want to come where they're not wanted, right? They want to be there for us to help us in whatever way that we feel like we need help from them. So I have had healing experiences from them. They have I don't know all about it. But my own experience is that they have some kind of healing capacity, both physical and emotional kind of help in healing. So I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm learning all the time. And I've been doing this for years and I'm still feel like I have just scratched the surface. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I never thought about, I don't know why it never occurred to me with the physical healing, but I really, when I start to film video of them or anything, I'm always like, I love them. I mean, I just feel like they're so comforting to know that they're there.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. And then when they're not there, I'm like, oh, I'm so lonely.
Yeah. There is, because you can feel their love and joy. You can
Yeah.
feel it. And when they come in, it's an exhilaration that happens. And you're right, once you feel that, when they're not there, it feels, it doesn't necessarily feel bad. It just feels, the difference now when they're there and when they're not there. So you can feel it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I kind of, I work with, well, you do too, with mediumship and galactics, sometimes seeing entities. And I just made a deal that I don't ever want to turn around and see anybody. Like that's kind of my deal.
And
But I love seeing the orbs.
I'm fascinated by the idea of aliens and galactic and all of these concepts and all of these things. And yet I kind of feel like it's not my lane. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I feel like it's not really, everybody has their thing and everybody has the stuff that they really feel drawn to. And I feel like that is, it's not that I don't believe it. I absolutely do, but I feel like it's other people's lane, you know? So,
Yeah.
but it's interesting how that happens when you get into actually practicing, like reading for people and things like that, that you kind of find that you're drawn to certain areas, or that certain things come really easy to you and other things don't. Because for me, the easy stuff is the feeling stuff. I can go into people's energy. I can feel their motivation. I can feel what their emotions or what they're thinking and that kind of thing. The things that are harder for me are things like reading on medical stuff, science stuff, as I call it, stuff, but that kind of thing, and alien, you know, other planets and things. I just feel like it's I really have to my guides have to be very literal. I don't have the knowledge background, and I think that always helps. You know, especially with science and medical, I don't have medical terminology that they can pull out of my memory bank, so they have to literally give me like cartoon imagery to get me to say certain things or to get what I mean, it must be I can't even imagine how frustrated they must get.
Oh,
Thinking,
well,
why the medical stuff? Why is she doing this?
it's
But I
so
think, you know, when something is challenging like that, I think it's still good to do it, but it doesn't necessarily change that you feel really comfortable doing a certain thing. And I think that's why politics, it's a natural fit, because you can go into people's energy and figure out, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? You know? Yeah.
yeah, it is, isn't it? And it's interesting because reading politics, and I rarely do politics, but every once in a while, and especially right now, because I feel like everything's going on. But it's interesting because it's not like when you go into somebody's energy, it's not like you're judging them. It's like it's seeing them as another entity, or listening to them as a person, and some of them are charming, even the worst ones.
Mhm.
They're kind of funny,
Yeah, and
but um,
it's interesting too how you'll go into one energy and you feel, just to give an example, and I won't go into politics, but just to give an example, because of all this stuff happening on the Supreme Court with Judge Alito, I went into his energy, and
mhm.
he felt like Michael Flynn. He felt it was that same energy. And it was like,
Oh,
that's really weird. But they both are kind of like have grudges against the US and things like that. But it felt so similar. It was just very interesting. And you're right, that is the way it is. You're not really judging it. It's more of just being aware and noticing, and then, you know, relaying it to everyone here.
yeah, yeah, it is interesting. Um, wow, that's a trip. That's a trip. Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
Flynn's another trip. Yeah, Seascape remembers you saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was surprising and kind of weird. I just wasn't expecting it. And I think anytime that happens to a reader, it lends validity to it. When something happens you did not expect, because I expected certain things, you know, and I got that. But there were other things I did not expect. So yeah, it's very interesting.
yeah. I read on Pootie once, and it was like, or a few times, and it was like going into his energy. It's sticky and icky, but he's kind of charming. You know, he's got this debonair kind of. I can see why he would be charismatic, and they say that about people that are
Yeah.
um, have done like the most things. They are incredibly charismatic, or they wouldn't be there.
Yeah,
So
and for me reading on him, and you probably picked this up too, was his confidence level. He's
I
so
know.
confident, and maybe that's why, maybe that is part of the charm, is that he is, because people are very, you know, attracted to confident people, you know, and he's very, he just came across that way, very, very arrogant, but also but very confident.
Yeah. So so that's going to lead us into what we're doing here today. Being arrogant, but also charming and confident. It's like not arrogance, but I like what you had to say this Sunday about having many dark night of the souls, because I feel like everybody has this energy coming in right now. And Deb just say anyone feeling very anxious, Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was,
Yeah.
oh, there's a TG Renner. Hey, TG. Yeah. Um, anyway, but it's kind of like, I was weeding the other day and, my husband passed and I was being really resentful of him. And I caught myself and I'm like, I just started laughing because I could hear him laughing. And I was like, he'd be out fishing. He wouldn't be helping me. He'd be saying, call somebody up. Write a check, girl.
I'm not going to waste my time.
Are you nuts? So it's feels like it's stuff that we don't have to be going through, but we're kind of recognizing old wounds.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that I think what spirit is trying to get, especially people with that are working in on their spirituality, and they're kind of in a certain place in their spirituality. I feel like they're trying to get us to do what's commonly known as shadow work. I feel like they're trying to get us to look at the, say negative, but the challenging parts of ourselves. I think that what has come along with the world we're in today, whether it's on social media, whether it's the political stuff, celebrity stuff, we're very judgy. There's a lot of judging of each other, feeling judged. And I think along with that goes, well, I'm okay, but you're not because you did this thing. And I'm good, but I would never do that. And I feel like at least this is the conclusion I've come to about what's going on right now, at least with me, which is, that's all I can really tell you is what's happening with me, is that my guides, and I think in general, a lot of guides are trying to get their spiritual people to look at themselves and to recognize that we all have the capacity to do negative things, to be negative, to be, we all have that capacity. And I feel like sometimes when you feel like I'm really trying to be good, I'm really trying to be helpful, I'm trying to lift the energy and stuff, I think that if you just deny that that's part of you too, I think there's something wrong with that. And I think that you can get into that kind of, I'm here on a mountainside being good and you guys are being, this, and I would never be that. And I think there's a need to recognize our own negative bits as well as the positive. Positive bits are really easy to point out and really easy to lean into, but the negative bits I think are really important to acknowledge, and also to kind of accept and love that part of you as well, because those negative bits are really the human part. It's not the spirit part. And so I think when you're doing that, you're loving and accepting your whole experience. And I think when you do that, it becomes easier. You become easier on yourself, realizing that I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to think badly about this person when I do something. I'm going to, but going in and figuring out what are my bits, what are my things that are more negative that I have to keep at bay and stuff. And I think finding those things and acknowledging them and loving the whole self and the whole human experience, I think that's what we're being called on to do right now.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Mary Ann says, my shadows have shadows.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start looking, and it's a scary thing to do. And I think especially for spiritual people, it's scary. It's scary to acknowledge that, but you think of what a scenario where you could be violent. What if someone attacked one of your children right in front of you? Could you be violent? I know I could.
Yeah.
So it's like
in a heartbeat.
It's like we all have these bits in us, and I think even just acknowledging that that's there, I acknowledge that, I accept that as part of the human experience. I don't necessarily like it, but I accept that it's there. And I'm going to love myself and the human experience in spite of that.
Yeah. It's kind of watching it, isn't it? Witnessing it. Because it's there. And you also talked about toxic positivity. I'm not going to rehash everything you did, I promise, Sunday. But I love that because I have felt like that was a thing in a lot of people on the spiritual path, that nothing bad ever happens, and we're above it all, or I read this book and now I'm never going to do that again,
Right.
and it feels like kind of that we have another lesson to learn about these things. Like, I really thought I was over that resentment, but obviously there's something there to learn. And I'm like, and obviously it's just that, let it go, girl, because write a check.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think too, and I had never heard that term, toxic positivity, but I think
Yeah.
it's a great term, and it explains exactly what it is. It is when you're positive, you're being positive, and if something negative happens, well, you're just not positive enough. You just need to be more positive. It's like, no, that to me, that gets into kind of the snake oil salesman kind of faith healer thing, where it's like, you're not getting well because you don't have enough faith. Stuff happens here. And it can be a lot of reasons why. Sometimes we put it in our path. Sometimes it just happens, and we have to pull the positivity out of it. We have to pull the positive lessons or things we learned from it. It's our job to do that, and we can do that with our guides and sources help. Or the universe's help. We can do that. Sometimes sometimes maybe we do make ourselves sick by being super negative and super angry and things like that. I mean, I know that heart attacks from stress is a thing, so it can be that as well.
Yeah.
But just to say, just be positive, it's very Pollyanna-ish, I guess, or it's very unrealistic. I think, of course, be as positive as you can be, but if something negative happened, don't blame yourself. That's the last thing you should do. If something negative happens, it's problematic. It's happening now, and we have to. It's a challenge we have to deal with, but there doesn't have to be blame of self involved.
Yeah. It's that judgment thing, self-judgment and self-talk is a big deal, isn't it? And I feel like we're all kind of getting into that right now with the throat chakra a lot. That just being clear speaking, what do we want? And as women in particular, or men that are in touch with their feminine side, we're taught to be nice, to not make waves, and to not get angry, don't show our rage. Whereas kind of that's the warrior inside us, isn't it? But not that we want to break every plate in the house, but one broken plate, I did that once and it was great.
Well, and that's part of it too, right? If we get angry, or even feeling incredibly sad, grief, letting it out physically is very important. Whether it's like I said, I rage sing in the car. That's my thing. but letting it out physically, punching a punching bag or hitting the pillow or screaming into a pillow, it is not allowing it to stay in there. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. Adding to your pain body so that down the road, somebody can say something and trigger that, and it all just explodes. And that's why you have those explosions over, the toothpaste being, squeezed the wrong way, because something happened a year ago that you didn't deal with, or you didn't speak about, and you just kind of pushed it down, and here it comes erupting. And so it is really important, you're right, to talk it out, to scream it out, to say it, to get it out. And I think part of a lot of the, particularly after the pandemic and kind of during the pandemic, we saw a lot of women breaking down in public and screaming in public and that kind of thing. I really do feel like it's not only the kind of, well, the kind of the divine feminine, like being kind of pushed out, kind of like we're here kind of thing. But it's also that the pain body pushing things down and pushing things down. And I think with Roe v. Wade, with the Me Too movement, I think this, and it may be generational. It may be all of women. It could be coming from really depths that we don't fully understand. But I think that part of that, not all of it, some of it's mental illness and whatever things going on, but I think some of that release is happening because of those things. Yeah.
I never thought about that. It feels like Black Lives Matter that came up during the pandemic too. I mean, that was an opportunity for so many people to get out there and just scream it out. And it happened on both sides of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I never thought about it that way. There was a lot. And I took somebody to task at the grocery store. I wasn't wearing a mask when it first happened. I was scared. I mean, there's a lot of fear. And there's that attachment to the outcome that instead of being present to think about, well, how's this going to end up? And looking forward or in the past.
Right. Yeah, the pandemic was very, for me, it really brought home the importance of being in the moment, to being present, because there it's like the past felt like it was so far away from us. It's like it never even existed that we hugged and stuff like that. It seemed so distant. And the future was so, I think a lot of, psychics and mediums and things knew that eventually it would be okay. Eventually we'd come out of this. I think all of us saw like science just like exploding with answers, things like that. But we didn't know how long. And timing is so weird. And so we didn't know how long it would be. And I think that so the future seemed very distant as well. And so the only place it seemed like was what it was and was sure was the present. And so for me, it was a long, 18 months of practicing presence in a way that I don't think I ever would before. And I probably never will in the same way again. It was kind of a forcing into the presence because of those reasons,
It was like getting your doctorate in spirituality for a lot of us, I think, here on YouTube. Like I took courses from you and Debbie. I had just gotten my certification from the Chopra Center, and I was doing things with them. And it was like every teacher, it seemed like, in the world was on YouTube or Instagram or something. And you could just go full force into it because you didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
And really look at things. Yeah. But I think now too, we're being called to do it in real time. Like we're back out there.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was interesting. I think there were so many things that came out of that were so positive. And I do think one of those was this, an understanding that we can connect around the world this way, exactly like this. I think some people were doing it that were in corporations and having meetings online, around the world, but normal, everyday, regular people weren't doing it. And so to be able to take a class from somebody that was in Australia, it blows your mind. But I think that was another thing it did, was connect us, but in a different way that we had to connect, because we couldn't connect any other way. We couldn't even visit our parents or grandparents, everything was so isolating. So connecting that way was so important. And And it was a positive that came out of it.
Yeah. And I remember watching movies and people would be hugging and kissing, saying hello. I was like, that's not going to happen again. Thinking,
Or
and
even
then,
shaking hands. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, those
right.
days are gone.
Yeah, that's over. But it all came back and it's really nice. But
Yeah,
yeah, it was just watching people do things that you never thought of. It's like giving somebody a hug or
yeah,
standing right next to them and talking. And now it is a little odd, but it's nice. And I think it's really nice here that like where else can you go? There are some places like to an ashram or something, and you have people that have very similar spiritual beliefs and interested in the same phenomenon or walk maybe. So
right,
yeah.
right. And yeah, and I think that talking about hugging and connecting in person and all of the things that even like having a birthday party all together and it was all gone. Really, we couldn't do it in a normal way, or what we thought was a normal way. And it is that taking things for granted. We are really, really good at that as humans, is taking things for granted, especially little things. But I think these kinds of upsets or these kinds of things are so important, so that we remember not to take it for granted. Democracy is one of those things that's in that boat right now of, I think we took it for granted, and so here we are, kind of this threat on this edge for such a long time. And I think that those of us who live through it won't see it the same way. We won't take it for granted exactly like we did before.
Yeah. It's interesting how that happened because a lot of people here remember the 70s and the 60s and everything that was coming about then for women's rights and the rights of different cultures, uh, the the walks and whatnot in the 60s. And it's really interesting now to see it happening with the young people. And they're doing it through technology. It's really interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's interesting. This generation, or these generations coming up, Gen Z, Gen Y, is that right? Gen Y, Gen Z.
I have no idea. I'm
Yeah,
laughing because I have no clue.
they they've had to contend with a lot, and I think, and you can feel the bubbling up of wanting to make a lot of changes, and I think they will, and I think they'll misstep, and I think they'll do great things. I think like every generation, it's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but they've had to contend with the environment, with skyrocketing prices of everything. Most of them feel like they'll never own a home. Most of them feel like they may not even, like my daughter says, pets are the new kids and plants are the new pets, because they don't see it. It's too expensive to have a family now. How could you ever do that? How can you even pay your student loan debts? You're coming into the world with $100,000 in debt. They're having to contend with a lot of stuff, and it's falling on their shoulders in a way I don't remember other generations having quite so much, and quite so keeping them down, And so they're not only super innovative in that they're carving out new careers for themselves where they don't have to answer to anybody. And I know people are kind of like influencers, blah, but it's a way of having your own business and doing your own thing and being creative in your own way. And I think it's really cool that they're creating these new positions and ways to move about society that are just different. They won't be a generation that goes to a job and stays there for 50 years. They're just not that. And I also like the way they're kind of nomads. They kind of move around a lot, and they don't have, they're finding alternative places and ways to live, that, some maybe work and some don't, but they're trying it. They're trying to figure it out. And I think it's just really cool. They're a very, very, they've had to be a very, very creatively thinking couple of generations.
Yeah, I think you're right. It does feel like they're very nomadic and global in a way that I wasn't. Like, I thought it was a big deal when I moved to St. Louis from Kansas City, and that was 300 miles, And then your daughter's in England. My daughter was in India and Australia, and now she's back here for a while. But I would never have thought of that.
Oh, yeah.
Would
And
not have
I think
occurred to
it
me.
does help to have, we can have video calls. They don't seem so far away. They can at points, but they don't seem like it, because you can just kind of pick up a phone and see their face, But yeah, I think that, and I think that that's what creates a compassionate world too, right? The smaller it gets, the more people around the world. Kids are constantly been gaming with kids in India and Mexico and all over the place, and they know that most people are pretty much the same everywhere. They want security, they want love, they want a decent work, that those kinds of things, and people are pretty much the same everywhere, and they know that just from their life experience and having friends all over the place. And like you said, wanting to travel and go to different places and have these experiences like no other generations, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really amazing. So that pause that we got with the pandemic feels like it's been to good use. Even though in hindsight, and even though we're supposed to stay in the present, to look at that and gain knowledge and wisdom, it's kind of feels good that something good came out of it.
It does. And it's individual, not everybody thinks of it in the same way, but I think that it's always to your benefit, to my benefit, when I can look at any situation and just pull out, what did I learn? What did I gain? And the pandemic is one of those where I gained so much. Even just realizing that you can have personal connection and community online. I never would have understood the power of that before the pandemic, and now it's part of my life. It's a regular part of my life, and it's a part of your life. These amazing people that are here, that are, even as we're talking, they're in the chat, consoling each other, talking to each other, helping each other, loving each other. It really is such a beautiful thing that came out of the pandemic, that I think has really saved and helped a lot of people to know that, because some people can't leave their house. Some people, don't have transportation to go to a club or something, and to be able to be part of something and part of a community. I think it's so wonderful. I think it's amazing.
I remember one of my teachers, when I was doing some work with it was with Chopra, and she was like, the air gets a little rarer the more you learn and the more you grow. And I'm like finding out, everybody's here. So it's really been a joy. The other thing, I like what you said about guilt and how we judge ourselves. Because I do feel like there's a lot of that coming up right now. I was talking about the throat chakra, and I meant to mention that because it's like we really look at ourselves, and even if we're used to not doing that, do you have something that you do? Like every morning now, I'm waking up and I try to make sure that the first thing I say is, "I love you, Teri," and
Oh,
"You're beautiful,
I
Teri."
love that. Oh, I
Because
love that.
Oh, thanks. Because I wake up and I think, what did I not do yesterday? And what do I have to do today now? Otherwise, the first thing you think when you wake up. But I know you practice a lot of mindfulness, and I always think about that when I'm cleaning the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is, I'm a big proponent of fitting mindfulness and meditation into just the daily stuff you normally do. And it's so easy to incorporate because most people do some kind of housework every day, even if it's just, wiping off the counters, or whatever.
Yeah.
But what happens is when you get into those activities that are repetitive, whether it's washing dishes or vacuuming, it creates the space for meditation. It is a meditation. And when you can kind of just let everything go and just watch the vacuum go back and forth without judgment, just kind of watching, being the observer, or you're washing dishes and you can smell the soap and you feel the water on your hands, you kind of get lost in just the senses that you're having doing the activity. That is meditation. You're not thinking so much. You're just kind of in the doing. You're in that zone, and that's exactly the place that readers get in when they read. It's kind of you're alert, but you're also very, very relaxed, and you're also your thinking has slowed down. You don't have a lot of thoughts going into your head and popping into your head. You're kind of an open vessel, and that's what's happening when you allow yourself to just kind of get lost in the doing. I've heard a lot of psychics that get messages when they drive or when they're in the shower. It's those moments where you're just kind of lost in the doing and you're not really thinking. And that's also where a lot of people get great ideas, or an epiphany comes to them, or a family member memory pops out of nowhere. That's your family speaking to you. I don't think people realize that when all of a sudden you have a memory that you completely forgot about your mother, when whatever, something she said or something, that's her. It's most likely they're talking to you. But you have things like that happen when you're in that kind of open, relaxed, meditative state. And you can do it with anything. You can, I always take a couple minutes. I have a little tiny fountain outside, and I sit out there for like 5 or 10 minutes and just listen to the water falling. It's little ways. And if you can't sit down, if you're super busy, fit it into your tasks, because you can definitely do that. And it does make a difference. It does make a difference.
So I love that. A lot of times we do guided meditations Monday through Friday on my channel, and it's like at least once a week I try to go into the senses, like name 5 things that you see in your room, or 5 things that you smell, and then when you take it a little deeper, and see light and feel light, the subtle senses, and then that leads to intuition, doesn't it? I mean, it
It
really
does.
opens it up. Yeah.
Yeah, because all you're doing is you're working on your 6th sense. Basically, you're working on your senses outside of your senses. You're upping your sensitivity. And anytime you do that, that's when you can start to feel energy, or you feel the energy in the room shift, or you feel your mother's energy all of a sudden. Those things, those kinds of practices, they make you more sensitive, just to what you're feeling. And more not too long ago, but I all of a sudden realized that, because a lot of the information I get is through emotions, feelings inside and things like that. And I all of a sudden realized that when you're talking about kind of going to the next level, as far as like the 5D, so much of it is sensing, feeling. It's not so much in the physical brain, in the physical, in the physical emotions. It's not so much that. It's out. It's kind of it is almost like a senses outside your senses. And it's very different. It's very different than what we're normally like. I need to see it, feel it, touch it. I need it to be in my brain. And this is kind of beyond that or outside of that. And I think I've talked about before, I haven't talked about the whole experience because, like I said, I'm still integrating it, but I had my first out-of-body experience. And so what I found out is that in that experience, I found out that, our relatives are right here. They're really right here. There is a layer of reality that's right on top of our reality. And it really is like that. And so it's just that we don't perceive in that way to be able to pick it up. Our radio dial is not tuned to that station all the time. And when you have an out-of-body experience, what you realize is, wow, where they are and in that reality, your vibration is high. When I came back into my body after the experience, when I opened my eyes, my body was vibrating so fast and so violently. Had my husband been next to me, he would have called the paramedics. It looked like I was having a seizure. But that's how fast and how vibrating our spirit is. And it also explains why we have these slight, as we move into kind of the 5D, or we move into a higher vibration, it's so slow. And even when we get like, I've got this headache and stuff, it does not surprise me at all, because it's such a high vibration. We would be completely knocked out by it if it was there, if we were just suddenly in it. We would all be having seizures and having all kinds of issues. All of us would be, because it's too much. And I also think, though, that's why it happened when I was away and by myself. It didn't happen here, because I honestly think he would have called the paramedics and said, what's going on? But that's how, and that was a surprise to me. But then I understood, this is why everything is so gradual, because otherwise we'd just all be flailing about.
Interesting.
I don't have too much information for everybody, but it was a very weird experience. And someday I'll talk about the whole experience, but I'm still surprised by some of the things I grasped and I saw, and then I understood. And it was not quite what I thought. But one of the things was their reality, our friends and family, they're right. It's right like that. And they can see it all. And we can only see this because we're confined to the physical body. But we can work on exactly what you're talking about, those other senses, and sensitizing ourselves. And then, I pick it up. I feel my mom here. I feel my dad here. I feel, we can start to pick up other things.
Yeah. I love that. And I get that, because my leg will twitch, or my arm will twitch, or my shoulder, not my entire body before, but when I'm in meditation, it does do that all the time. Yeah. And I always wondered about that. And then I realized in somatic work that you shake and get that stuff out of your body. I had a teacher, Reverend Saul. He was on the channel quite a bit, and he was a crystal shaman. Anyway, he passed away a couple of months ago. He walked out of his body. And he used to always say that we've been given a Maserati and we need to drive it like a jalopy, because because it's just it's too much energy. We have to go slowly with it. Our brain is like, once it gets to full function in our mind, together, it's just, we can't handle it yet.
That's exactly. And people do have, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, things like that. And the effects, sometimes they're permanent. Sometimes people come back with psychic abilities, and that's that. But there are subtle changes that it does change you. It does. But they can be sometimes lasting forever. And sometimes they last for a short time, but they're very intense. So yeah, it's very, 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 very real.
Yeah. Well, I always hear the ones that are close to me, but and some others sometimes, but it is interesting. And they have a sense of humor. At least the ones that I talk to do. They're pretty funny.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
like my
yeah.
husband the other day, write a check. like, like he would have said that because I don't think we write checks very often anymore. But I didn't even think about that. Dang. Anyway, yeah, it's different. So, and that's part of our story, right? Because when we're here with the ego mind on this third dimension, we have a story, and we're kind of raised to not think that we would have any contact with our loved ones after they pass, other than praying to them, perhaps, but not maybe hearing them, or that we're supposed to be quiet, or that we're supposed to be, get the job, get the loans, get the mortgage, get everything, and do all these things, which has been beneficial to a lot of generations. And now all of a sudden, everything's changing, but it's nice kind of because it's changing the story of the earth, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. And I know that when I've read on, like, for example, the environment, Mother Earth, I always get the same answer, which is that we're going to invent our way out of this. It will be humans coming together and working together, and we will invent our way out of this. And I didn't think we would see some of the things that I was seeing. I really didn't think I would live to see it. But recently, just a couple of days ago, somebody said, you were just talking about this, and it's the first solar plane, the first solar airplane. And then they had a couple of kids that just won I don't know if they won the Pulitzer or they won something, but they came up with found this organism that eats plastic. It's like we're going to figure this out, and it's going to come from people working together and helping one another. And also, I do believe that one of the things that has come out of the pandemic is this kind of a general raise in vibration, but also a raise in consciousness where people are more reachable. And so you will have people figuring things out that we haven't ever been able to figure out. The cure for cancer, a cure for Lyme disease, a cure for that. It's going to come, and it seems like everything's coming faster now. And I do believe that and my guides had said that after the pandemic, time would speed up. And I didn't understand what that meant, but now I see, it's that stuff's going to start happening faster. So the technology is going to be out of control, but also the cures for things and the answers to things, and all of these things are going to be sped up because the veil is thinning, and at the same time, consciousness is raising. And so it's like we're on turbo right now.
Yeah, I see that too. That we're just it's like a golden age.
Yeah.
And I was reading an article the other day. I was skimming, let's be honest. I didn't read the whole thing. But it was talking about how with art, you can tell, like, by the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, you can tell by the art what the art looks like. And art is so innovative now. And some of it is like, art where you walk into an installation, and it's transient. It won't ever be the same, like all those folded clothing and robes and kimonos or whatever. Everything's changing so fast. But
It is, and it's just it's all, especially art and music and these things, that they're all a reflection of us. It's a reflection of what's happening. We were talking about how I can't remember what show it was on. I think it was when I can't remember. I think it was Andre or somebody. We were talking about how, movies reflect the time so well. In the 70s, we had all these kind of paranoia, kind of the government's out to get us, and those kind of, the French Connection and different things. And it was reflecting what people were feeling after Watergate, and with, the government not quite being what they thought and stuff. And it's always, but all of art is always a reflection of what's happening, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're going through. And I think in the next 20 years, it's going to be just fascinating to see what happens in the art world, but also in technology. And I think we're going to misstep sometimes. I know everyone's very on edge about AI. And I feel like with AI, it's going to kind of be like the internet, where you can go on and you can look at porn, and you can, go down the dark web, or you can watch something like this. You can find spiritual enlightenment. You can find any kind of information or hack or DIY. You can find so many great things, but you could also go down that road that's darker. And AI is not exactly the same. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that comes out of it that's like, this is amazing. And then there'll be this darker road. And I think that, we'll choose we will choose as individuals, so keeping in mind and exercising that free will. That's why it's so important is when you're exercising it in a way that's responsible and, spiritually minded and stuff. That makes a difference. It really, really does.
it does. It really does. Do you feel like we're going to have a big reckoning of like the thing that always gets to me is the billionaires and then the homeless or children that don't have enough to eat.
Don't
right?
get me started on billionaires. It's like my biggest, they call it in England a pet hate. It's my pet hate right now.
Right? Yeah. And I know that there's people
So
that,
frustrating. Yeah.
that are kind-hearted and they're billionaires and they give a lot of money away, I'm sure. But it is an odd thing that I think, I don't know how that's going to happen, how that's going to change, but it feels like that's something that kind of has to be reckoned to somehow.
Yeah. We've been in this cycle, and I'm watching, I keep saying this, people are gonna be like, you're so weird, but I've been watching Password from 1979, the game show Password.
Yeah.
I've been like hundreds of episodes online. So I've just been, and it's, for whatever reason, it relaxes me. I think that actually the words and the synonyms help me in reading so that I have more vocabulary to express what I'm feeling about, things like
Brilliant.
that. But what's interesting is that it's 79, right? So it's right before 1980 when we start all of this stuff with, Dynasty and Dallas and the homes of the rich and famous. And that I really feel like the 1980s was when our worship of the rich began. And I think we're on the tip of this kind of, it's like we're on the tippy top of this. We've climbed this mountain and we've gone through the Kardashians and all this, all of this just worship of these people that sorry if you're a fan, but people that don't really deserve it. We don't really know them. And I think we're finding this over and over again with these court cases and these weird things that come out about celebrities. It's like, you don't really know these people. You think you do. And they're not just good because they're rich and good looking. And I think we're figuring that out, but it's been a really long time that we've kind of been in this whatever this is, this kind of worship of the rich. And I want to be rich. And don't you want to be rich? And everybody wants to be. It's this weird, it's like this worship of the rich. And we've been climbing this hill since the 1980s. And I feel like with the 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 desperateness, the cry of the people that are homeless and can't find a home and are displaced, and with people displaced because of global warming, and also all of the tragedies of global warming, people, going through all these storms and the fires and everything. I think that we're slowly coming to the understanding that that isn't where our attention and our focus should be, is to be rich. It's not the end all be all. And not only that, it's a trap, because when you get to a certain point of wealth, it's never enough. You just keep wanting more. And hence we've got these billionaires it's not enough that they have billions. They want to keep every penny. They don't want it. They don't want to give taxes. They don't want to, and not only that, they want more stuff. It's still not enough. They want more. They want to get rid of all the regulations so they can have more. So it's also a trap, for them. So it's not good for them either, whether they realize it or not. It's not good.
Scarcity, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that we're reaching this I don't know, this inflection point where we're kind of going to let go of that a little bit. And it may come through some of these battles that we're going to see with these very, very powerful banks and the powerful corporations and these powerful people. It may come to some kind of a head where we're going to have to face this head on and figure out what to do as a society, because this is not working. It's not working. It's not working for anybody, even them, whether they realize it or not. It's not working for them. When you are spending your time trying to throw yourself into the ocean floor, that's not good. That's not a good thing. What are they doing now? They're kind of just, shooting themselves into space and shooting themselves into the ocean floor. It's like, what are you doing? They don't even know. So it's not good for anybody. Yeah. Greed. Thank you, Debbie. Deb, that's exactly right. That is not good for anyone. And it's not good for society as a whole. And I will get off my soapbox now, and you can decide.
I agree.
You opened that rabbit. You opened that box.
It is my peeve too. I'm like, how can there be billionaires and kids that can't eat, or people living on the street? And we're seeing more and more of it. So it's got to end somewhere. There's a show on Apple TV, and it's one of the girls from SNL, one of the really funny ones, not Kristen Wiig. Anyway, but I think it's called Molly, and she's a billionaire, and it's kind of like it's a lot like Mackenzie Bezos and Jeff Bezos when they got the divorce, and she's giving away all her money, and her husband's flying off to space, her ex-husband, and trying to get her back. And it's just so funny how she keeps trying to give it away, and she just can't give away all of it. And anyway,
that's it. I mean, a lot of the billionaires, they have more money than they could ever spend, than their kids could ever spend, than and spend on what too? You have to ask yourself at some point, what? Yeah, I don't get it. And I just watched recently a story about kind of the rise and fall of a particular influencer. And it was just her and her husband, and they bought a mansion. This room, or no, not even this room, my whole top floor of our condo was her closet. And I just thought, I don't even understand. I can't wrap my head around what this kind of thinking is. I don't understand it at all. And it's and like I said, it's not good for them either. It didn't work for them. It definitely didn't make them happy, because it's the rise and fall. So, but it's very, very, it's a very interesting time. And like I said, I hope we're hitting some kind of some kind of head, that this all comes to kind of a head at some point, because it needs to change at this point. It's old, and it's gone to such weird places that it's like,
right?
It's change.
We're almost at time, but I was just going to mention, we were talking about Maui the other day, and I don't know if you know, medium Betsy Palmer. She lives on Maui, but she came on and was telling us about what was going on there that we don't get in the news. You
Mm,
know, that people are homeless, and there's these billionaires, and then right next to them, there's all these people living out of their cars and getting up every morning and going to work and taking care of people that come to visit. And then it's interesting because I thought that's a small island that you're kind of seeing everything happen, and I wonder what happens there, and you know, how they can move forward and how we can help. But anyway, I thought it was very interesting that it was just there, and it's not like these people can move somewhere else.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and you don't, if if someplace is your home, it's your home. You don't want to, nor should you have to move, you
yeah,
know?
particularly if you're Native Hawaiian. Yeah,
Yes,
your land.
exactly. That's yeah, those roots are so deep and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But let's end it on a good one. So, I do feel like we're changing our stories, and I love that you said that we're at the end of this Real Housewives era, Dallas era,
Yeah.
and that things are changing, and it is a lot more supernatural now. Like all the movies that are coming out are about time
Mhm,
jumping and
mhm.
all sorts of interesting things. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of really yeah, a lot of uh, yeah, and you can kind of feel things shifting, and they all have their everything has its time that it stays, and I think this has just gone on too long. So I feel like it's we're going to see it change, um, but they can get entrenched too, where it becomes harder and harder to change. So but yeah, but I'm hoping we're kind of seeing, and I do think the pandemic did help with some of this. All of a sudden people are like, yeah, I'm not going to go into this building every 5 days a week. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to see my family grow up, and my time is precious. I think people realize that too, how much time they had given away to
yeah,
stuff to people that may not really appreciate them, or may not really there could be replaced like that. So why am I giving my whole life and missing my kids growing up and missing my spouse or missing my pets, and why am I doing that? So I think that it changed a lot of people. So I think I think that gave us kind of a shove, the pandemic did, and I think we're moving into a different time, even though it's slow. Some of these things are very entrenched, so it will take some digging to get them out, but I think it will happen.
yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and
Thank you.
everybody
Thank you
in the
for
chat.
having me, and have a great trip to England.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I can't wait to see family over there. I love having family there.
Oh,
It's like we have another dimension. I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel like that's another dimension that I live in, and I live in England. And
yeah,
all those people that I see every time I go, I'm like, that's my other family. So
yeah.
anyway, it's
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a second home for us too, for sure.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was such a joy.
Thank you, Terry. It's always
Yeah, and
fun. Thank you,
uh,
everyone.
yeah, thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you later. Bye.